Well, here we are, another of these Sunday recorded messages, and because we will be restoring the celebration of Sunday Mass in public next weekend, this is the last of these messages that I will be making. If I make another, that will mean that everything has gone horribly wrong and we've all been locked down again, but let's really hope that we don't get to that. Today I'd like to reflect for a few moments on the provisions for Mass that we will be bringing in next weekend, and then after that just quickly to think a little bit about the wonderful feast that we celebrate today, the feast of St. Peter and St. Paul. First of all though, I'd like to share with you some amazing news that we've just had. I've just been looking just this minute at our WhatsApp messages, and I see one from our wonderful friends in Breb in Romania, the village where we've helped to fund the building of a new church, and they sent me photographs finally of the timber church being erected on the concrete base. It's a beautiful sight. That field, what we remember first of all as a bare empty field in the middle of the village, is now becoming a place of worship. How fantastic. What a lot there is to give thanks to God for at this time. I know that lots of you are full of joy and excitement at the thought of coming back to Mass, and that must be amazing for you. I've been looking forward to it so much, to being able to welcome you back again. But I want to just share with you for a moment how that's going to look, what it's going to look like and feel like, so it doesn't come as too much of a surprise. Try and give you some information. We've decided that we will continue to adopt the government's 2-metre social distancing requirements within the churches for all of our Masses at this time. We do have the option to reduce that to 1 metre, the 1 metre plus that we've heard about, but if we did that we'd have to require everyone present at Mass to wear a face mask while they're there. At the moment I'm reluctant to take the decision that would require everyone to do that. Of course, if you want to wear a mask, that's fine, that's up to you. I don't mind you doing that at all. It may be that in order to fit everyone else in future, you will say to me, no, come on, let's go to 1 metre and willingly wear face masks. And if you say that to me, that's absolutely fine. I'm happy to be governed by that. But for now, everything is set up for 2 metres. And that means, obviously, there is some restriction on the number of people that we can fit into the church at Mass. And it won't be in any way the same as we've been used to in the past. I know lots of you are desperate to get back to Mass, as I say, and I know how understandable that, of course, is. But I also know some of you are quite anxious about coming out. You're worried about being in crowds of people. Some of you are being required to shield yourselves still, and you're complying with that, and that's absolutely good. And I'm really absolutely support all of that, of course. It's important for us to understand, though, that the Sunday obligation to attend Mass continues to be suspended. We are now able to celebrate Mass, but there is not an obligation to attend. We are, of course, obliged to keep Sunday as a holy day, the Lord's Day, the day of resurrection, and to celebrate that by acts of devotion and prayer and worship, but we are not at the moment obliged to attend Sunday Mass. So, while we have the chance to come to Mass, of course, you are so welcome to do so, but if you're anxious about being in a crowd, or if you're anxious about there being so many people there that we can't fit everybody in, or if you just don't quite feel ready yet to be in a crowd of people, then of course we'll be having Mass each day during the week, and so it would be perfectly reasonable, in the absence of the Sunday obligation, for you to say, well, I'll go on a Wednesday instead, or a Tuesday, or a Saturday, or whatever day. So there will be pretty well the usual old weekday Mass schedule with Masses both in Petworth and in Midhurst, and of course one of them is an evening Mass, the Mass in Petworth on a Friday evening. In addition to our usual Sunday schedule of Masses at Duncton, Midhurst and Petworth on Sunday morning, there will, as a temporary measure, be an additional 4th Mass on Saturday evening at 5:30 in Petworth. And it'll be possible, of course, for you to come to that. Hopefully that will give us the capacity for all the people who might want to come to Mass. It's difficult for us to know how many people there will be, and we want to avoid the danger of having to turn people away if we possibly can. So I'm asking you if you would contact Catherine in the office, preferably by email or by text, or you can leave her a message otherwise, but mainly by email or text, and say to her which Sunday Mass you plan to come to. And if possible, I'd ask you to make that decision and then for the foreseeable future to stick to that. It's very difficult to have the admin of endless lists and rotas of who's coming where. So if you think to yourself, I'm going to go on Saturday and that's what I'll do for the next month or so, that would be a great help to us. And you can see the email address and the mobile number that you can send texts to at the bottom of your screen, and I'll leave that there for the rest of this message. There are going to be obviously people who can't get out and want to feel part of our community, want to see familiar people, hear familiar things happening in a familiar place. And so from next weekend, one of our Sunday Masses, usually the Saturday evening one, will be recorded, and immediately that recording will be placed on the internet. You'll be able to see it either at our YouTube channel or by going to our website and following the link from the website. And I hope that'll be a help to those of you that aren't able to be with us. There are going to be some changes to the way in which Mass is celebrated in practical terms, and I'll explain those at the beginning of each Mass. It doesn't make a lot of sense for me to do it now, but I'll explain those to you at the beginning of Mass. But please do be assured that the two priorities are, first of all, to keep everybody safe, to do the very best that we can to make sure everyone is kept safe, and secondly, to make sure that our celebrations of Mass are reverent and spiritual and holy, that it is a holy experience, that you will go out thinking, wow, I have been in the presence of the living God. I'm going to spend much of the coming week trying to work out how best to do that within the limits of the restrictions that are placed upon us. I'm so much looking forward to seeing you at Mass again. It's going to be so exciting. Just let me turn for a brief moment, though, to the scripture readings and, above all, to the celebration of the feast of St. Peter and St. Paul. They were two very different men, but in some ways there are parts of their lives that are mirrored, and one of those I want to reflect on just for a second today. In his homily for this feast last year, Pope Francis refers to their similarities when he says, "Both were cut to the core by questions asked by Jesus." Beside the Sea of Tiberias, the risen Jesus has breakfast with his friends. They're sharing food, sitting by the sea. There he is, risen from the dead. And it seems to be on one level such a mundane thing, just sitting eating food together, but then on another level it is the most extraordinary thing. They're having breakfast with a dead man come back to life. And there is this real sense throughout them having their breakfast that something is about to happen, and then it does. Jesus turns to Peter and says, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" Simon, son of John, do you love me? Yes, Lord, you know I love you. Jesus doesn't ask this question because he needs to know the answer. He can read Simon's heart already. He asks the question because Simon Peter needs to be forced into answering it. He needs to be forced into thinking about it and to saying what's really going on, to having his mind and his spirit turned upside down by the question that Jesus asks. And then, much later on, Saul is riding to Damascus and crashes to the ground from his horse and hears a voice, "Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me?" Both questions mark a moment of conversion. For both of them, this is a moment of deep personal change and growth. Both of the questions make the person that hears them see the world completely differently. Peter realizes that the road he has set out on will end up exactly where Jesus ended up. Saul realizes that he has been putting all of his energy into trying to silence the truth. They're transformed by the questions that they are being asked. And I'm sitting here trying to think to myself, what is the question that Jesus is asking me this weekend on this feast of St. Peter and St. Paul? He has a question for all of us this weekend, I believe. I don't know what his question for you is, but I have a hint of what mine is. It's something for each of us to ponder and to chew over in the week that lies ahead and the week that lies beyond that, I think, as well. Peter's question from the Lord was, "Do you love me?" Paul's question was, "Why are you persecuting me?" What's yours? Have a wonderful weekend, and I so much look forward to celebrating Mass with you now in just a week's time.